okay? We have charges that I would characterize as business charges that would still remain in place. They wouldn't go away. Students would still have to deal with some of these charges if they relate to them. For example, there's library community fees where we charge for the public to just come and use the library. Okay? There's deferred payment plans that students can enter into. There's a cost to set up that plan because we don't do that totally by ourselves. We have a cost associated with that, $25. Late payment fees, we would still charge those. These are business fees, right? You don't pay your bill on time, you get charged $2. Testing fees, there are certain types of tests, exams that we administer. We would still charge a fee for some of those. You want transcripts, business fee, we would still charge you for a transcript. And so I've included in here the different types of business charge fees. We have NSF fees, and you lose a book, you got to pay for it, whether you're in a public school or you're going to a library or private library. You got to pay for those if you lose them. But so what I wanted to talk about is you've got this bucket of business fees. We're not talking about rolling that into a single rate fee. Those are the fees that you do just for doing business, okay? What we're talking about rolling into a single fee is the student fees. And right now, there's 4 slides that you have in your presentation of all the different fees that apply to students depending on what you're taking and how many hours you're taking, okay? So I'm not going to read all of them, but there's a large list of fees. There's page 1, here's page 2, here's page 3, and again, I'm not going to go into all of these until the actual discussion kind of heads that way, and here's page 1.
What I did last night was add up all the ones that would pertain to a normal student that didn't go to a college, going to the nursing or massage, and it came up to about $756 more, just on fees, and not including, like I said, not including the nurses' fees and graduate courses, laboratory fees. So it's about $800 just that.
Depending on what you're taking.
Depending on what you're taking. Yeah. So it could be more, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
and on
the
average,
amount was 800.
Yeah, and on average, Ricky, is it 40%, 50%?
About 40%.
So yeah, the dollars add up. So what we're proposing is we need to make sure that we're whole. Okay, we can't shoot ourselves in the foot with a single rate and not at least bring in what we need to bring in. So what we look at is we look at what do all these fees generate? And they generate about 2.8 million tuition and fees. And we say, okay, if we're going to charge a single rate fee, we just need to make sure that we collect that same amount of revenue. Now, if we get a tuition increase, we would adjust those so that the single rate, if it was $100, would be $105, depending on what the increase is, okay? So what we're proposing is to essentially give students an opportunity to really do some pretty simple math. If the single rate is X number of dollars and I'm taking 10 credits, it's simple math and that's it, that's all they pay. Now, if they don't pay their payment on time, they're gonna get a business charge of $10, right? Because it's a late payment fee. If they write us a check for their tuition under the simple math example, and it bounces, they're still gonna get that business charge for an NSF. If they lose their book, I don't know if anyone buys books anymore. Many people probably use the documents and stuff, but that's why I wanted to make sure that there was an understanding that just because we do a single rate fee, it gets rid of all these pages of fees, but it doesn't mean that you won't see a business charge.
So the calculation for whatever the single rate would be, let's just say it's 900, just for the purposes of this discussion. if somebody was in the nursing program, they wouldn't pay an additional, it's just flat rate for everybody, doesn't matter what, if they're gonna go into education, engineering, or.
Correct. Yeah. Same for everybody. The other thing that I want to mention, and then maybe Ricky, this would be a good time for you to go into yours. Here's the other thing I want to mention. We've had a number of discussions about this, but I want to make sure that you understand this also. Just because we go to a single rate fee, just because we simplify for the students what they're going to charge and they don't have to worry about this 4 pages of fees, doesn't mean that as an institution we don't maintain those on our system, okay? So what we would still do is, I use the term, we'd still have to maintain those behind the curtain, okay? Because no one in the engineering department, the nursing department, or any other department would get a buy on what it costs to run their program. We still need to know from them how much it's costing, and we would still do all the math behind the curtain, because that and any tuition increase in the future behind the curtain would drive that single rate. We would still want to be able to answer to all the folks that might ask, you know, where does my money go to that I paid for tuition? And that's why it becomes important that we maintain that behind the curtain. What we're trying to do is simplify and make sure that we're whole with the revenue that we need to bring in, and simplify a rate for the students. So I want to make sure that that's real clear. We don't have, I'm going to say right now in our system, our banner system, anything set up in preparation for that. If we're going to do it, it's going to be a lot of work, and that's another reason why I just want to mention this. Approving of the operating budget is so important that we get it done earlier in the year, as opposed to what we've done historically, kind of dragged our feet on. And let me tell you why. Our IT people, we stress them out tremendously, because the longer we get the longer we wait, the closer we get to pre-registration, and in our case it's April 20th, the less time they have to make all the changes to banner, and there is a lot of them, in order for us to accommodate any increase in fees or tuition or just changes in the way that we want to charge students. And that's the administrative burden, or the behind-the-scenes things that nobody really sees. We talk about it in the business area because we're stressing about it, and we know that has to happen. And when we did make a change a couple years ago, we had a lot of unhappy students because we weren't able to get all the pieces done by the pre-registration, and people got some fees later in the year. And I know that Ricky had people lined up at his door. Dr. Barcelo had a number of people calling her, and then of course they all came to share their thoughts with me and their criticisms.
I got called.
Yeah. So.
Kevin.
I have a question for you. Going back to the tuition increase, and I'm kind of focused on the affordability aspect here. And what percentage of our students receive significant financial aid, Pell Grants, lottery scholarship, you know, those sorts of things? What percentage of our students are on those kinds of subsidies?
Right now we have receiving any type of Pell Grant, okay? 84% of our students receive some sort of federal Pell Grant aid, okay? And
Is that
62% of them that receive any kind are receiving the full Pell.
okay? If our tuition went up, I assume that the Pell Grant, would that correspondingly go up as well?
Now, it will for those that receive some kind of. Now, the full Pell is full Pell, and it pops out, and I have to ask what that number is again, meaning that once you get full Pell, you're at full Pell. But what goes up is the cost of attendance, and that then it decreases the expected family contribution, meaning financial aid is adjusted by the cost of attendance. And the same happens for students who live on campus, meaning that if you have an institution that has a residence hall, and the student lives on campus, then again, the cost of attendance goes up for them. So financial aid is determined by the cost of attendance, which is the sum of a number of things, including tuition, including books, including housing, including fees, etc.